Hello and blessings, my beautiful souls, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the significance of tarot shuffling, because the process of shuffling your tarot decks is incredibly important. The way in which you handle your cards at the very beginning of your reading is incredibly significant, and unfortunately I've noticed that this information and the sacredness of shuffling has disappeared from the modern community of tarot, and I'm going to explain this a little bit further. Now, I'm coming from the perspective of tarot. I have been reading tarot since I was a tiny little person. So I have over 30 years of experience. I've been reading literature on the subject of tarot for such a very long time, and I can honestly see the way that tarot shuffling has changed in this, our modern era. So this is not a diss, this is not disrespectful. I'm not having a go at anyone when I explain this, but I'm going to be giving you a little bit of information about the process of shuffling, why it's important, why it should be done in a specific way, or why it was, more to the point, done a specific way, because I don't think should has anything to do with this. It's more about educating you further on why it is that tarot has been handled in such a way for such a long time. So let's get into it. Before we get started on the process of shuffling, it's important to understand that a great and rather vital component to shuffling is the activation of your cards. Now, depending on who you are and how much experience you have, these methods will differ from person to person. Personally, for me, I'm here in my reading space. I will use a bell. I will use my little Peruvian owl rattle to call in my gods, guides, guardians, ancestors, and Orisha. And in the process, I'll be activating my cards. I also like to smoke cleanse before I get started on a reading, but these are just my own processes. For others out there, they might blow on their deck, the entire deck, the breath of life. They might knock on their deck, as in a way in which to awaken the spirit of the deck. It very muchly depends on who you are and what you are comfortable doing. There is no right or wrong way. There is only your way, your own unique way, and the way in which holds a lot more meaning to you. So for me, the bell clears, sound clears energy. I like to work with a bell to clear the energy. I like to work with smoke to clear the energy. I am a folk witch. I am a spirit witch. So it makes sense that I would use these types of tools. Then I call in my gods, guides, guardians, ancestors, and Orisha with my rattle. And that creates sacred space and sacred energy around my tarot deck, full stop. And so I don't feel like I need to blow or knock on my deck at all in order to achieve the same thing. Now, that aside, once you've activated your deck, there are a few things to consider when approaching the shuffling of your deck. So right here, I have the Good Fortune Tarot by Llewellyn. It's a gorgeous deck. I'm absolutely loving it. And the backing is divine. Now, this deck has very thin cardstock, which makes it perfect for any type of shuffling, whereas a self-published deck, like say my first edition Bonestone or the Connected and Free Alchemist Oracle, these are sturdy decks. It's very hard to bend. It's very hard to bend either one of them. And so the process of shuffling then becomes a little bit more important, because typically speaking, indie decks with good cardstock are expensive, and you don't want to go ruining your good decks, your expensive decks. And so the process by which you choose to shuffle your cards becomes more important. So for indie decks, a hand over shuffle method is what is preferred. This is what is called a hand over shuffle. It's gentle, it's passive, it's feminine, it's high priestess. This is important for a later conversation. You can get a really nice shuffle with this, but it takes a little longer. It takes a little longer to do. It is my preferred method. It's the one that is the kindest to my decks, and because I have so many decks that I choose to work with, I don't want to fall into the habit of one specific shuffling style when I understand that some of my decks are worth thousands of dollars. I'm not going to be heavy-handed with decks worth thousands of dollars. So that's something important to consider. So I like the overhand shuffling, and a deck with thick or thin cardstock, this has got very thin cardstock, is great for overhand shuffling. It's nice and quick, it's nice and easy, and it will give you a really great shuffle, and it gives you an opportunity to concentrate and set the intention when you are doing a reading. So as you are shuffling, you can be sitting there stating the intention of the reading over and over again, whether it be for a client or for yourself. Another method to shuffle is the notorious poker style riffle shuffle. And so I do not like riffle shuffling my decks. I get very nervous doing so. I'm a little bit clumsy about it. But that there is a riffle shuffle. It will give you a really good shuffle, but you'll need to do it a couple of times. And it might not even hurt to throw in a little overhand after that. Then there is the method by which you create little piles, like so. You can create as many piles as you like. This is also a really great method if you want to incorporate reversals, because one of these piles could be reversed, and then you start picking them up in a randomized order. Like so. And then you might even do a little handover shuffling just to sort of like solidify, or even a riffle shuffle after that if your cards allow for that to happen. Then there is the age-old swishy, swishy, swishy. This is great for reversals. It can be very meditative. This is probably one of the oldest ways actually to shuffle your tarot cards. But it's like I don't have a lot of space for this kind of shuffling here, but it provides you with the most randomized shuffle, and it can be very hard to put it all back together again. Let me just tell you, when I first started out, when I was a little person, a little girl, I would have only been about 5, maybe 6 years old. This is how I used to shuffle the cards because my hands weren't big enough. So it has a special sort of place in my heart. But the cards will be totally randomized now. So you've got upside down, you've got reverse. You can see you've got upside down and reverse. So that's a great way to add reversals if you have the space. And my tip for this is, if you really, really want to get a good sort of motion to that swishing, there's an actual name for it. I think it's called washing, if I remember correctly. I think it's called washing. But if you want to create that nice washing experience, sit on the floor and do it on the floor. Make sure the floor is clean. Lay out a little cloth or a blanket or something, and really spend some time with it, because if you really wanted to put that deck into a topsy-turvy kind of fashion, it's a great way to actually make it a very random experience. But now, one thing that's important to understand is that the more hectic your shuffling method is, the more masculine it is. This is traditional thought processes. This is not me making this up. So the more intense and active and intense you are about your shuffling, it's more masculine. Whereas a gentle shuffling method is considered more feminine, very much more high priestess. And in that instance, when you are very careful and when you are very gentle with your cards and one card just jumps out, it becomes so much more significant. Nowadays, we have this new trend of shuffling in which a tarot reader will shuffle in order to push cards out to jump, and that's how they select their cards. I don't find for myself that that's technically necessary, because if I'm doing a good enough job of shuffling, my cards will be random, and whether or not I choose to lay them out from the top or I choose to fan them out like this and pull cards in this capacity like so, the order will always be randomized if I have done my job of shuffling well. But the magic of having a card that actually jumps out is very, very special. Now, traditionally for myself, I say traditionally, but I mean here for myself, if a card jumps out and it's face up, then I will consider it as a message from spirit. And that becomes very, very special. And I'll sit it to the side and I'll be sure to place a lot of emphasis on that as I'm reading. If a card jumps out and it's face down, I remove it from the deck. It does not want to be a part of the reading. And that is my own personal philosophy. I try my very best not to cause cards to jump out, because the process of a card jumping out is so unbelievably sacred to me that I couldn't possibly try and create that for myself. It just wouldn't feel genuine. But to each their own, like I've said, everyone has a right to treat their cards the way that they feel is right for them and their style of reading. And it really comes down to the type of reader that you are. And so, depending on your deck, depending on the thickness of the cardstock, depending on the way that you want to activate your cards, what method do you believe would be best for you?
So beautiful souls, I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If there is anything that you would like to add to the conversation, please do so in the comment section. And I would love to ask you, how is it that you prefer to shuffle your cards? Is there anything that you do that you believe is absolutely essential to the process in which you choose to shuffle your cards? Because at the end of the day, our own unique processes are individual from one reader to another. There is technically no right and wrong. It's just a matter of understanding what works for each of us as tarot readers, and to understand why it is that we do the things that we do, and give those things meaning, give those practices meaning, and give those practices a bit of a descriptive narrative. So with all of that said and done, I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and I will chat to you again soon. Mwah! Bye!